The word survivor can mean so many things. One of the first definitions I found is a person remaining alive after an event where others have died. To our people, that has a deep and powerful connection to one of the most horrific experiences and events in the history of mankind. The second definition of survivor that I found is a person who copes well with difficulties in their life. We all have difficulties in our life, but oftentimes this word is paired with cancer. Cancer survivor, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. And the third definition, which shockingly wasn't in the dictionary, is Survivor is a reality television show that's been on the air for over 17 years, and a show that I won way back in 2002. Thank you. But winning Survivor and surviving cancer are the two defining moments in my life. And what I learned from those experiences, how my Jewish values helped me win Survivor and survive cancer, and what my life's mission has become, and how all that's tied to the values of our people, is what I'd like to talk about over the next 12 minutes. So how did being Jewish help me win the show Survivor? Well, fasting wasn't really a problem. I do that once a year anyway. Eating nasty foods, not an issue. I've had gefilte fish jelly a lot. And I'd already survived the most grueling test of strength known to man, circumcision. But the truth is, growing up Jewish did more than just prepare me for my bar mitzvah. It gave me what I call real knowledge, not book knowledge, not Torah knowledge, not Who Wins Survivor season 38 knowledge, but rather knowledge about who you are, what you care about, and how you respond to challenges in your life. In fact, the Hebrew word for a challenge shares the same root word for a miracle, which is nes, you see right there. And that's because when we're put through a challenge, it brings out miraculous things in us. And these challenges aren't supposed to beat us down, but rather the opposite. They're supposed to build us up. They're supposed to empower us as individuals so we can go out there and make a difference as a community and as individuals. Now, Survivor did change my life. And the experience I had on the show touched on every part of me as a human being: mental, physical, social, spiritual, environmental. And living with barely enough food and water and television cameras for 39 days was torture. But the real challenge came when all of a sudden I had to figure out, what do you do when you suddenly win $1 million? Not a bad question to have to answer. And I'm a good Jewish boy, so I invested my money well. I tried to fund the shutdown of Donald Trump's Twitter account. Didn't work. But I invested that money in something much bigger than myself. I co-founded a charity called Grassroots Soccer, and let me just give you some background on how all that got started. So before Survivor, I lived and played professional soccer in Zimbabwe. And when I first arrived in Zimbabwe, one of my strongest memories was of all the graveyards. Because my team, the Highlanders Football Club, we'd all smush into these tiny white little vans and travel these long, dusty roads to get to our away matches. And I just have these visions of these graveyards because some of the headstones were perfectly organized, one right after another. In other areas, there were these wooden crosses piled high, like overflowing on the streets. So I asked one of my teammates, why are some people buried just like this and other people buried like that? And he looked at me. He says, well, that's where they bury all the people that die of AIDS. To see a physical representation of everyone's dying of this disease was shocking to me. And this was really the first time I saw how one disease was destroying a community. I saw the pain and suffering, I had compassion for all these people touched by this single disease. But at that time in my life, I didn't really know what I could do about it. I was 26 years old. What can one person do to help this massive problem in all of Africa? So you know what I did? Nothing. I said, it's not my problem. It's in a land far away. I shelved it, put it in the back of my mind, returned back to the United States to continue playing soccer in the US. And of course, it's still in my mind, and I'm thinking about what's going on, and people are dying, and everyone knows why, and no one's doing anything about it, including me. And I still had a little bit of hope. But for me, that hope really came to fruition on the reality show Survivor. So once again, I was brought back to Africa, but this time to Kenya. And when I was on the show Survivor, I won one of those reward challenges where I won these 2 goats, which I wasn't so happy about. But I got to take these goats to this little village of Wamba. And before I left this village of Wamba, I was hanging out in the parking lot of Wamba Hospital. And all these little Kenyan children came out and they're touching my white skin and they're playing with my jufro, you know, like they had never seen anyone like me before. And that's when I busted out this, a little mini soccer ball, a hacky sack. And so we start playing and we're laughing and we're smiling and we're communicating through this sport that we both love. We're speaking the same language, yet we're not speaking the same language. And I asked one of the nurses, like, why are all these kids just hanging out in the parking lot of a hospital? She says, well, these are all the kids that are HIV positive. Wow, here we go again. Like, here I am in the middle of this game, this cutthroat game of Survivor, and I have this real life experience. And what I wasn't prepared for on Survivor was the loneliness and isolation of being stuck in the middle of Africa with no friends, no family, no congregation, no Wi-Fi, nothing. All I had with me were the clothes on my back and this one luxury item of choice, which, you know, a little hacky sack. And this happened to be a toy that my father had given to me before he passed away. And the interesting thing is that once all my distractions were taken away from me, I was left with nothing more than the bare essentials of who I am. And once I became aware that this knowledge of self is all that we needed to survive and prosper, I ended up giving my hacky sack away to some little Kenyan kid. A decision that I know my dad would have been okay with. So without ever really knowing it, I brought along all the things that I needed to survive. It was just me and my guts, because once you take away food, you take away water, you're tired, you're hungry, you're thirsty, your true colors come into focus. And all that was left was my character, my compassion, and my perseverance. And even though that's not what they showed in the trailers or the commercials for the show Survivor, that has helped me win Survivor, and that's what helped me survive. So when I got back from the show, you know, I got 15 minutes of fame, which was probably up about 10 years ago. I got a little chunk of change in my pocket, and I met up with some soccer buddies. And we had an idea, like, how can we use the world's most popular sport, soccer, to save lives in Africa? So we started a charity called Grassroots Soccer, which is an adolescent health organization that educates, inspires, and mobilizes young people to overcome their greatest health challenges and live healthier, more productive lives. And the way we do this is we train professional soccer players, coaches, and peer leaders in the community with an adolescent health curriculum that we developed, and then we send them into the classrooms or the soccer fields to deliver these health interventions. And I don't know how familiar everyone is with soccer and the popularity of soccer. I mean, the World Cup is starting on Thursday. But if you wrap all the major league and minor league sports in Canada and America into one, that's how popular soccer is in Africa. You know, it's like hockey, like right here in Toronto. It's like baseball in New York. It's like competitive plastic surgery in LA. You know, like every little kid wants to grow up to be a professional soccer player, so you can imagine the impact when we send these players in there. I mean, the kids, their jaws drop open and their eyes pop open. We end up changing their behavior so they can go out there and make healthier choices in life. And now we're in 50 countries, and we've graduated about 2.2 million kids from the program. Thank you. But what I want you guys really to take from this grassroots soccer model is that these soccer players, these coaches, they're the leaders in the community. And so I truly believe being a member of the community is one of the most important factors that help me survive and thrive in life. And this whole community thing, I learned this early on in life. When I was 14 years old, cancer came into my home and it took my father away from me. And all I wanted to do was like curl up into a little ball and hide in my room. You know, cancer really forced me to press the pause button on my life when all my friends were just starting theirs. And I really never felt so alone ever in my entire life. But it was my mother, my brothers, my congregation, my friends from Maccabee. They're the ones that reached out and embraced me and my family. It was a Jewish community that embraced us and reinforced our values in a time when we felt like we were completely alone. And Elie Wiesel once said, "A Jew alone can't be a Jew. A Jew is a Jew only if they are part of a community." And I realized this a couple years ago. I recently got married to Lisa Haywood, who now goes by Hannah. She's recently converted to Judaism. But joining this community late in life was a new feeling for Lisa. And we both learned that being a member of the community and not being a member of the community is a huge difference. And like, I never realized this, because I grew up in it. Like, I knew no difference. And now, Lisa has something that's always been there for me, a connection with those who care, a support system, a link to community, and a large extended family both here in Canada, in Israel, in the United States, and all over the world. Survivor, on the other hand, is a television show that's been criticized for being against all things Jewish. Survivor is a game that rewarded one for being dishonest. It rewarded you for isolating yourself in the community. And I can see how the critics saw this and viewed the show this way, but the way I saw it is I played the game in an entirely different way. I made myself a crucial member of the community. First one up in the morning, last to go to bed. I started the fires, I got the water. I helped on all the challenges. And the way I saw it is I was a member of the community. I was crucial to everyone else's survival. So without me, they may have struggled even more. And during my entire time out there, I didn't get one vote against me. And that's because I was that crucial member of the community. And then I experienced all this community stuff again when I was going through my own battle with cancer. I was 35 years old, on top of the world, training for the New York City Marathon, and I had some really itchy skin. I tried every pill, cream, potion, lotion known to man. And it wasn't until a swollen lymph node popped out of my neck and they found a 6 centimeter by 12 centimeter mass in my chest. And after about 4 months of wondering what was going on inside my body, I was diagnosed with a rare form of blood cancer called CD20 positive Hodgkin's lymphoma. Trust me, I'd never heard of it either. I was placed on 12 different forms of chemotherapy, 22 blasts of radiation, and an autologous stem cell transplant. This got the disease into remission. And there were some pretty dark days going through treatment, times where I felt like my whole body had turned against me. I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep, I felt miserable, my hair was falling out, I had no energy. And then the disease returned just 20 months later. And getting the news that the cancer returned was deflating, exponentially more difficult than the first time around. I was scared, frustrated, pissed off, and I didn't want to die. And as a patient, it's really hard to articulate what it feels like to be seriously ill. It pays to have a positive outlook, but when your entire team of doctors try multiple ways of healing you that don't work, you panic, you freak out. I craved survival. And lucky for me, at that exact moment of time, just when I needed it the most, a new smart targeted therapy emerged on the market and was available for a select group of people in my exact situation. And I don't really know what they put in this smart targeted therapy, but what I do know is that's pretty freaking smart, because this got the disease into remission again, and I was able to go on to get my second stem cell transplant, this time using my brother Lee as the donor. So I've officially changed my name to Lethan, and I'm no longer my mom's favorite son, which is the worst part of this whole cancer thing. But now that I survived, I decided to live the rest of my life by making sure to never let a crisis go to waste, because it's an opportunity to do some really important things. And to me, that means dedicating myself to this cause and doing everything in my power to make sure other people don't have to go through the same crap that I went through, that maybe some of you have gone through, or some of your friends and family have gone through. And there's this one time when I was in the waiting room of Memorial Sloan Kettering Hospital in New York City. I was with my mom, it was my 4th treatment, and I walked into the waiting room, and what punched me in the stomach, and what punches me in the stomach every single time, is that the waiting room is full. It's just jam-packed. And my mother and I saw this woman sitting across from us and just totally burst into tears because her son had been whisked away to start his treatment. And we sat there as like this invisible wall, no one knowing what to do, not talking to each other. And we were just sitting there like strangers, yet we're so connected by this horrible situation. And so my mom got up, she sat down next to this woman, she comforted her, she listened to her, she put her arm around her, she pointed back at me and says, "That's my son over there. He has cancer too, and it's gonna be okay." And when I saw my mom do this, so many things were going through my mind, but first of all, I was just so proud that this was my mom. And secondly, watching my mom comfort this other mother, sparked an idea in me. I realized that I could be doing something like this in a much bigger way, because maybe the details of my life may have the opportunity to help some other people out there. So I look for every opportunity to share my story. I ran marathons, I tweeted, I blogged, I'm speaking here today, I'm sharing my story. And I took my battle public. And I didn't know what would happen, because it's a really gross, ugly, disgusting time. And I didn't know what would happen if I built my life to complete strangers all over again. And it hasn't been easy. but 38 people have reached out to me and told me that their friend or their brother or their siblings or their cousins had that same crazy itch and went to the hospital and got diagnosed. Playing some role in getting people diagnosed earlier is an absolute miracle. And it helped me to help others. It was so simple. Focusing on the plight of other people literally helped me heal. So if your experience growing up Jewish is anything similar to my experience, then you too have these tools. When faced with adversity, or more importantly, when striving for greatness, you can rely on all those tools you learned in the Torah, and you can rely on all those tools you learned in that giant laboratory outside the Torah as well. And the key is to do more than just come to JEDx tonight. It's to leave here empowered. Like, I'm motivated, I'm empowered to do a little bit more, to connect a little bit more, to help a little bit more. I am a survivor. I remained when others have not. And in tribute to them, join me. Let's all be empowered to make a difference for ourselves by making a difference for others. Whether we're old or young, man or woman, American or Canadian, Sesame or Poppy, we all have one thing in common. We're all survivors on this earth for a very short time. And it's not about how or when we leave this world. It's what we do to make the most of each day and each crisis while we're here. So thank you very much. Our tribe has spoken. Thank you.